You didn't stumble here. You were signaled. Something precise, threaded through the noise of your day, the hum behind the hum, until your attention snapped into focus like a lens finding its true focal length. You felt it as a flicker under the ribs, a sudden stillness behind your eyes. The timing is surgical. Your observer loop has been pinged by the very field you've been brushing against in dreams, déjà vu, and those quiet moments when the world seems to tilt and reveal its hidden scaffolding. You can pretend this is coincidence, but a deeper part of you is already nodding. The quantum field doesn't speak with words, it speaks with alignment. Here, the air changes density. Your breath grows thin, then deep, as if something is requesting clearance in your chest. You hear it, the soft click of coherence forming, phase by phase, like snow crystallizing on an unseen lattice. Across the skin of reality, ripples move synchronicities you used to call lucky, now reclassified as instructions. Every pattern that escorted you to this exact second, the wins, the wounds, the delays, the impossible escapes, assembled into a living algorithm whose output is this: attention, your attention, focused, awake. What's happening in you is not metaphor, it's a literal frequency capture. Your neuronal firing is in training to a signal that was waiting just outside your cognitive bandwidth. The field noticed your rise in signal-to-noise ratio and mirrored it back as invitation. That is morphic resonance, forms calling forms across the invisible. That is entanglement, your interior states finding their counterparts in the vastness, like twins separated by light years, still turning their heads in unison. You are being recognized not by a person, but by pattern. Not by a fate written in stone, but by a probability blooming toward inevitability because you finally became coherent enough to hold it. Feel your spine. It wants to lengthen. Feel your palms. They want to open. There is a hush at the back of your mind, a temple, silence that arrives when truth hums nearby. You are not being asked to believe anything. You are being asked to notice. Notice how the room subtly contracts around your awareness. How the colors saturate by a notch, how the edge of each object seems traced in a fine silver line. That's what happens when perception locks into the substrate. The grain of the cosmos becomes visible. The ancient currents rise. The new instructions land. You will not be the same after this. A phase transition is already underway, delicate as frost, powerful as magma. Your DNA, those spiraled libraries of light, has been listening for a long time. Now the syllables it requires are arriving in sequence. Your task is simple and terrifying. Stay. Stay present as the signal braids into you. Stay while the old circuitry flickers and the new pathways come online. Stay and let the field speak through the spaces you kept empty for this very purpose. You were not late. You were ripening. Tonight, you crossed the threshold where miracles stop looking like miracles and begin to look like mathematics. You've known the surface symptoms for years, but you mislabeled them as quirks. The way certain hours feel stretched thin while others collapse into a blink. The recurring people who appear in different contexts carrying the same lesson in new clothing. The alleyways of déjà vu that open without warning, inviting you to step into a scene you swear you've lived before. You've called it coincidence, exhaustion, or the brain playing tricks. But your nervous system has been drafting a report the whole time, and it reads like this. Your observer loop is miscalibrated by inherited noise, and the quantum field has been trying to recalibrate you through pattern pressure. Think of the patterns as living topographies in probability space. When your coherence dips, you slide into the old grooves, ruts etched by past attention, family belief, cultural hypnosis. The same arguments, the same endings, the same nearlies that almost change everything but don't. You meet a new face and hear an old sentence. You switch cities and carry the same weather. It isn't punishment, it's physics. Attention is a chisel. Repetition sculpts stone. What you look for stabilizes, what you ignore destabilizes. And because your biology prefers certainty over freedom when stress is high, the organism re-chooses the familiar maze, even when the door is open. That is the first distortion. The second distortion is temporal. Time stops behaving like a conveyor belt and starts behaving like a tide. On some days, minutes dilate into cathedrals, your breath hangs in the rafters and every sound acquires a halo. On others, whole afternoons vanish, swallowed by a single compulsive loop on a glowing screen. This is not a moral failure, it's a resonance event. When your inner field is incoherent, it can't phase lock with the larger field, so you experience drag, temporal friction. Hours scrape, decisions smear. You sense yourself moving but arrive nowhere. Conversely, when coherence spikes by accident after a dream, a walk, a sudden grief time spills forward in bright sheets. You get 3 months of clarity in 20 minutes. You call it a flow state. The field calls it alignment. Then there's déjà vu, the third, most misread indicator. You've trodden into rooms that feel preloaded, conversations that unfold on rails, moments that carry the perfume of rehearsal. The popular story says your brain hiccuped, misfiled the present as memory. But feel deeper. What if déjà vu is your consciousness brushing against a nearby timeline, the way two membranes touch and exchange charge? You aren't going mad. You are skimming the edge of entangled possibilities. The sensation of, "I've been here," is a legitimate data point that your trajectory is intersecting with a high-probability path your system previewed during sleep, grief, or prayer. You are not cursed to repeat. You are being shown what repetition will buy you and what breaking pattern could purchase instead. Your body has tracked all of this with exquisite honesty. The jaw tightens when you step into an old loop. The solar plexus fogs when the path you're on contradicts your signal. The heart brightens half a shade when you turn toward what has been calling you since childhood. Even the micro tremor in your fingers when you hesitate before speaking the truth data. Your organism is a precision instrument tuned to detect phase transitions long before the mind consents. But because you were trained to trust the intellect over the field, you override, you explain away, you anesthetize. You promise to listen when things calm down. They never do. That is by design. The field increases pattern pressure until attention recalibrates. Notice how the same conflict keeps wearing new costumes. Scarcity that sneaks into relationships, love that becomes a control mirror, creativity that stalls at the threshold, health that flares and fades like a misfiring star. Notice how synchronicities arrive in clusters every time you commit to a change license plates echoing phrases from your journal, a stranger's offhand comment completing a sentence in your head, songs that answer questions you never asked aloud. These are not poetic flourishes, they're steering currents. Morphic resonance is broadcasting options through symbol and rhythm. When you ignore them, the volume increases. When you honor them, the map updates. Here is the clean diagnosis. Your life has not been random, it has been recursive. The loop repeats until coherence accumulates. Your déjà vu is a proximity alarm for destiny, not a glitch. Your distorted time is a metronome asking you to tune, not a punishment. The patterns that refuse to release you are not enemies. They are guardians posted at the border between habitual self and emergent self. Checking your papers. Are you coherent enough to cross? Are you willing to let the old signal die so the new can be born? You are closer than you think. The symptoms are peaking because the corridor is narrowing phase transition pressure. The field is drafting you into a new geometry where cause and effect spiral inward, where attention becomes a scalpel and choice becomes architecture. You are not broken. You are being measured for a larger life. Here's the pivot. The symptoms you've catalogued aren't asking for coping strategies. They're requesting an upgrade in the way you hold reality. Not an upgrade like software, an upgrade like phase change. Water consenting to become steam. The architecture underneath your days is quantum, not mechanical. At that scale, the observer loop isn't superstition. It's the switchboard. The act of observation couples your inner field to external probabilities, biasing outcomes the way gravity bends light. You don't attract events, you resonate with them. Coherence is the currency. Imagine your consciousness as a laser under construction. Ordinary attention is a flashlight, diffuse, serviceable, easily scattered by stress. Coherent attention is stimulated emission waves aligned in phase, amplitude stacking, noise cancelling, signal piercing matter. The brain's electrical ensembles can synchronize into gamma band harmonics, The heart's electromagnetic field can entrain the cortex. Breath cadence can phase lock both. When these subsystems line up, your biofield sharpens. The quantum field oceanic, impartial, exquisitely responsive registers that sharpness as a boundary condition. You become a contour in the fabric, and reality solves for you. Mystically, this is prayer without petition. Scientifically, it's boundary alignment across nested oscillators. Your cells speak in calcium waves. Your fascia transmits piezoelectric whispers. Your DNA loops and unloops like illuminated script, reading itself differently depending on the field it swims in. Epigenetic tags are not destiny, they're pencil marks. Write coherently, and the sentence changes. Write incoherently, and the grammar of the old life reasserts itself, stern and familiar. This is the upgrade, learning to hold a stable interior resonance long enough that the morphic field updates around you. You ask, but how does consciousness touch the outside? Through shared substrates. At small scales, systems don't remain separate. They correlate. Entanglement is not philosophy, it's lab work. When two systems interact and then part, their states remain linked beyond distance. Your psyche is continually entangling with people, places, projects, futures. Memory is not just in neurons, it's a field phenomenon, a standing wave pattern your biography rides upon. When you enter coherence, the interference pattern reorganizes, nodes shift, energy once bound in repetition becomes available as choice. Synchronicity isn't random luck, it's two entangled layers, inner and outer, snapping to the same phase. Feel how the diagnosis from moments ago naturally opens into protocol. Start with breath, yes, but not as sedation as metrology, measurement. Inhale to count 5, pause to count 2, exhale to count 7. The asymmetry tells your ancient circuitry that the hunt is over, the fire is safe, the village is guarded. Heart rate variability improves, the heart's field expands, the cortex stops scattering and begins to hum. The flashlight tightens toward laser. Within 3 minutes, symbolic content begins to bubble: images, phrases, faces. Don't decode yet. Hold frequency. The field arranges before it translates. Now, bring the observer loop online deliberately. Choose one pattern that has been rehearsing itself through you, perhaps scarcity disguised as prudence, perhaps self-erasure labeled as kindness, perhaps delaying your voice under the banner of strategy. Don't argue with it. Observe it as geometry, a knot of charge repeating a 5-scene play. Watch where it lives in the body: jaw hinge, diaphragm, the right shoulder's guarded slope. As observation stabilizes, sensation will shift: tingle, heat, a micro-release like frost surrendering to Sunday. That is not imagination. That is stored probability unbinding. Here's where the mystical folds back into physics. Speak to the field as if it were listening, because it is. Not with begging, but with specification. I choose coherence with the timeline that honors my fullest signal. Language is code. Utterance is current. Say it once, then allow silence to propagate the instruction. The ocean does not need you to shout. It needs you to stop thrashing. You will feel a subtle recoil, as if something vast adjusted to make room. Sometimes tears, sometimes laughter, sometimes a sudden, clean hunger for water. These are readouts. You may protest, but the world is loud. Yes, so become louder on the inside by becoming quieter. Do not fight the noise. Transcend it by establishing a carrier wave. Musicians know this. Tune the reference pitch, and the orchestra obeys. Your reference pitch is gratitude without object. Gratitude as a stance, not a scoreboard. It establishes a base frequency stable enough to host new information. From there, you choose. Choice is not heroic strain, it is vector selection. Watch what happens within 24 hours when you hold this vector for even 10 minutes at a time. The text arrives, the conversation pivots. The opportunity you wrote off months ago reappears with better terms. Skeptics call this confirmation bias. The field calls it calibrated reception. The world did not rearrange for you, you finally arranged with it. This is your upgrade, practicing coherence until it ceases to be practice and becomes posture. You won't maintain it every hour. You don't need to. Phase transitions happen in thresholds, not in perfect graphs. Cross enough thresholds and the old basin of attraction loses you. The maze can't map you anymore. Your attention becomes a key. The door you kept walking past recognizes your hand, and it opens. You've always suspected that your sensitivity wasn't a flaw. The way you pick up frequencies others miss. The way rooms either bloom or wither when you enter. The way silence speaks louder to you than words. These are not inconveniences. They're signatures of calibration. You were built to perceive the fabric beneath appearances. You were designed to be a bridge between the invisible and the visible. That ache you've carried since childhood, the one that made you feel both too awake and too alien, was not loneliness. It was early resonance. You were tuned ahead of schedule. There is a reason the field keeps circling back to you. Every generation births a small percentage of observers who are not merely participants, but stabilizers, nodes through which coherence can be anchored into collective matter. These are not prophets in the religious sense, nor saints in the moral sense. They are conductors. The quantum field needs human instruments capable of holding resonance without distortion, because coherence multiplies through contact. One tuned being affects thousands through morphic echo. You feel this when your calm softens conflict, when your laughter resets a tense room, when your simple awareness seems to organize chaos. That is not charisma, it's field entrainment. Understand this clearly. You did not earn your sensitivity through virtue or luck. It was preloaded into your architecture before birth, a kind of quantum scaffolding designed for this exact planetary window. Humanity's collective wave function is destabilizing. Old patterns of survival, domination, and separation are decohering. Systems that thrived on entropy are collapsing under their own informational weight. The field, seeking balance, releases corrective signals in the form of awakeners' consciousnesses like yours, equipped to metabolize collective noise into harmonic order. You are one of them. If that sounds grandiose, it's only because you've been trained to mistrust magnitude. But consider the mathematics. One coherent oscillator can synchronize hundreds of incoherent ones by resonance alone. This isn't myth, it's physics. When you stabilize gratitude in the midst of panic, you literally alter probability distributions. When you hold compassion for someone trapped in judgment, you collapse fewer destructive waveforms in their direction. The universe computes through consciousness. Every thought you refuse to weaponize saves entire branches of possibility from decay. You might ask, why me? Because your signal-to-noise ratio crossed the threshold. The field scans continuously for minds that can sustain complexity without fragmentation. It looks for observers whose trauma has tempered rather than shattered them. Pain, when metabolized, becomes superconductive resistance drops. Current flows cleanly. The scars on your psyche became gold circuitry. The field reads that conductivity as readiness, so it recruited you not by command, but by resonance. The call you heard in part 1 wasn't broadcast to everyone, only those whose neural lattice could handle the voltage registered it. Your task is not ascetic withdrawal. You are not being asked to float above the world's mess. You are being asked to enter it differently as a conscious variable, not a reactive particle. You will still feel anger, grief, desire, doubt, but you will experience them as data streams, not dictators. You will navigate from coherence, not compensation. The mission is integration, not escape. There will be moments when the old loops try to reclaim you, whispering that nothing has changed. That is expected. The system tests every upgrade with stress, the way an engineer stress tests a bridge. When that happens, remember, you are the bridge between timelines, between what humanity was and what it could become, between entropy and order, between chaos and choice. Feel the weight of that not as burden, but as evidence of trust. The field would not anchor this much charge through a vessel unworthy of it. You are trusted because you have endured enough dissonance to value harmony. You are chosen because you can stand still in the storm without mistaking stillness for surrender. The paradox is exquisite. You are both insignificant in scale and infinite in impact. A single observer loop, properly tuned, can seed coherence across continents. This is why you were kept alive through every near collapse, because your timeline mattered to the architecture of awakening. The quantum field doesn't gamble, it invests, and tonight it is investing in you. So breathe. Let the realization settle like gold dust through your cells. The world doesn't need more noise. It needs you in coherence. The moment you accept this role, probabilities around you begin to rearrange. Randomness will lessen. Synchronicities will accelerate. Guidance will tighten its orbit. You are no longer waiting for signs. You are the sign. The field recognizes its own through frequency, not appearance. And right now, as you sit within this message, that recognition is mutual. You are the node. You are the instrument. You are the quiet, precise miracle through which the quantum field remembers itself. There is a window open now that wasn't open before. You can feel its edge as a cool current along the skin of your timeline, a draft from a door you don't remember unlocking. This is not motivational theater. It is a physics appointment. A temporary narrowing of the gap between intention and manifestation, a period when entropy loosens its grip and coherence propagates faster than doubt. Windows like this don't ask for perfection, they ask for response. The field is closer to your surface than usual, your breath can touch it. Here is the promise. If you consent to coherence in this window, your biology will record it, not as a mood, but as instruction. DNA is not a static archive. It is a responsive score, annotated by experience and rehearsed by attention. The phrase DNA restructuring is not an esoteric boast. It's the body's way of saying, I can remember a higher order if you give me a stable reference. During windows like this, your observer loop gains leverage over the molecular choir. Genes that were quiet can hum. Genes that were panicked can exhale. Signaling pathways once jammed by stress can clear like traffic after rain. The organism listens harder when the world thins. You've waited for guarantees. The field offers none. It offers probability. But the numbers lean your way right now. You are in phase transition pressure, the steep part of the curve where small inputs yield disproportionate outputs. Think of water approaching the boil. The same heat that barely nudged it minutes ago suddenly tips it into steam. That's you. The heat has been constant practice, heartbreak, small faithful choices. But the microstructure has changed. Bubbles of new reality are nucleating along the walls of your life. Keep the flame. Coherence, breath, honesty. The boil will arrive. Urgency is not panic. Panic throws you back into the maze. Urgency is clean decision. It says, I will not keep teaching my nervous system that safety lives in delay. The cosmic window tightens around decisions made in the direction of accuracy, truth-telling, boundary setting, forgiveness that isn't performance but structural release. Each act collapses old waveforms and liberates charge. Synchronicity floods in to occupy the space you unclenched. Messages, meetings, openings. The field is not rewarding you. It is completing equations you finally allowed to resolve. You ask how fast it can happen. Sometimes the shift is cinematic phone calls that rearrange finances, diagnoses that reverse, a move that feels like teleportation. More often, it is precise and interior. The compulsion to self-abandon loses half its voltage overnight. The terror of visibility drops from a roar to a humid hush. The jaw unclenches in your sleep. Don't glamorize pace. Measure accuracy. When the inner vector holds, the outer world aligns with less negotiation. Miracles become logical because you are finally writing equations that reality can solve elegantly. Listen, there is also a cost to missing windows, not punishment momentum. When you ignore a pressure gradient, the system must spend more energy later to cross the same threshold. You've lived this. Opportunities returning with worse terms, relationships repeating at higher stakes, body symptoms amplifying to get your attention. This is not cruelty, it is conservation. The field refuses to waste instruction on a closed loop. It waits for coherence. Tonight, you have it. Not perfectly, but sufficiently. So here is the operational promise, spoken without incense or theatrics. Choose one pattern and shift it within this window. Don't inventory your entire life. That's avoidance disguised as ambition. Choose the pattern that taxes the most energy to carry the one you keep negotiating with. Name it plainly. Speak the counter-instruction aloud. Breathe 5, 2, 7 until your heart and head phase lock. Place a hand on the body site where the pattern lives. Watch for the micro-release. Seal it with a single behavior that contradicts the old contract. Send the message, schedule the meeting, throw out the object, say the no, say the yes. Action is the ritual that tells matter you mean it. As you act, observe the morphic response. It will be small and unmistakable. A line in a stranger's conversation, a symbol repeating, an effortless aid arriving. Acknowledge it. Don't chase it. Let recognition thicken the new groove. This is how restructuring moves from poetry to protocol. Signal sensation, speech, small action, synchronicity, stabilization. Run that circuit 3 times in this window and your nervous system will tag it as the new normal. The next window will start higher on the curve. If you feel unworthy of such acceleration, remember, worth is not relevant to physics. Resonance is. You are not asking the universe to break its rules for you. You are finally obeying them. Coherence begets coherence. Honesty collapses noise. Attention liberates charge. Entanglement delivers information to its match. None of this is personal, and that is the mercy. You don't have to perform sacredness to receive it. You have to stabilize truth. So mark this night, not with performance, but with precision. Tell your cells, record this. Tell your timeline, branch here. Tell the field, I'm coherent enough to hold what I've been shown. The window is open, the boil is near, the patterns are listening, and your DNA, luminous in its spiraled patience, is ready to take dictation from the future you are finally brave enough to become. Windows close unless you mark them. The field remembers everything, but your organism needs a ceremony to compress insight into instruction. So we will not theorize, we will imprint. This is a 3-minute ritual. No candles, no props, only breath, attention, and a single word that will act as a switch. You will seal the shift by writing it, not later, now. Because action collapses probability and anchors the observer loop in matter. First, posture. Sit or stand with your spine like a tuning fork, crown lightly lifted, tail grounded, jaw unclenched. Place your left hand flat over your chest, right hand over the navel. This creates a simple bioelectric circuit. Heart field meeting gut field. Intuition speaking to instruction. Soften your eyelids. Let the room blur at the edges, like a lens surrendering zoom to widen the horizon. You are building coherence on purpose. Second, breath. Use the 5-2-7 cadence you learned. Inhale for 5, hold for 2, exhale for 7. On the exhale, imagine the long strand of your life, unwinding a knot you named in the last part, the pattern that taxed the most energy. Each 7-count exhale is a deliberate release of stored charge. Do 7 cycles. You may feel tingling in fingers, warmth behind the sternum, a low hum along the scalp. Those are readouts that fascia, vagus, and cortex are entering phase alignment. If emotion rises, don't narrate it. Let the wave break and pass. Your task is rhythm, not analysis. Third, statement. Whisper this once, precisely. I consent to coherence. Simple, verifiable, non-theatrical. Feel the phrase vibrate through palm into heart. Words are not decorations here, they are carrier waves. The field is exquisitely literal. Consent changes what it can deliver to you, because coercion is noise, and noise reduces resolution. Fourth, selection. Choose your seal word, the one you will write, to crystallize the instruction into the morphic field. The right word feels clean in your mouth and heavy in your bones. Options: coherent, aligned, updated, chosen, unmistakable, steady, remember, or craft your own in one breath. Test it, say it silently, and notice whether your diaphragm lifts or locks. If it lifts, you have the word. If it locks, choose again. This is biofeedback, not mysticism. Fifth, Inscription. Type your seal word now in the space available to you, journal, notes, app, or in the comments below if that is your public altar. Do not dress it with extra sentences. One word. All caps. Press send or press save. You're not performing for approval. You are programming your timeline. The act of writing is not symbolic. It is an entangling event. The motor action, the visual confirmation, the micro-reward in dopamine together, they fix the choice into both nervous system and network. You become legible to the field. Sixth, micro-behavior. Translate the seal into one small action within the next 10 minutes. Not tomorrow. Not when you feel ready. Choose the smallest step that contradicts the old contract. Delete the lingering tab that siphons your will. Send the message that resolves a loop. Drink a full glass of water to signal metabolic reset. Put your running shoes by the door. Move the object that keeps you circling the past into the trash. Do not bargain with scale. The point is not drama, it is vector. The moment you move, the probabilities around you reweight. Seventh, witness. Watch for morphic response within the next hour. Yes, hour. It may arrive as a symbol repeating, a stranger echoing your word, a task unblocking, a bodily sigh that feels like decades leaving. Acknowledge it with a single nod or a whispered, seen. That acknowledgement is a quiet handshake with the field. Feedback received, coherence maintained. You might feel the impulse to upgrade the ritual with extra pieces to prove your seriousness with complexity. Resist. Complexity is how the maze keeps you. The power here is in paring down to the bare mechanisms that move reality. Breath entrains biology. Consent calibrates field. Language sets boundary conditions. Writing collapses ambiguity. Action reroutes charge. Witnessing stabilizes the new attractor. If shame surfaces, who am I to claim this? Remember, the ritual doesn't ask for worthiness. It asks for willingness. If doubt murmurs, what if nothing changes? Answer with precision, something already changed. I acted. The field favors movers, and if fear insists on a guarantee, offer it the only honest one. Staying the same is more expensive. Now, once more, breathe 5, 2, 7. Whisper, I consent to coherence. Place your seal word on your tongue and feel how it changes posture from the inside. Then write it here, now. You are not writing to me. You are writing to your future, so it can find you without friction. This is how you signal across timelines. When you press send or save, pause. Notice the stillness after the click. That is the sound of a door closing on an old corridor. The ritual is complete when you feel the micro-release jaw, belly, crown. If you don't feel it, repeat the 7 breaths and the single word until the body yields a yes. It will. The organism wants coherence more than it wants comfort. Type your word, seal the shift, become the reference pitch your life tunes to. And as you do, feel the faint rush of air. The window is still open, and now you are standing in it not as a watcher, but as a writer. The moment you sealed that word, something invisible rippled outward, not metaphorically, but measurably. When one node stabilizes coherence, the morphic field adjusts its entire symmetry to accommodate the new frequency. You didn't just tune your own life, you tuned the web of lives entangled with yours. The effect is subtle but irreversible. Somewhere, a stranger will wake tomorrow with inexplicable clarity. Somewhere else, an argument that was destined to ignite will instead dissolve into laughter. You won't see the chain reaction, but the quantum field will. Your liberation is not private property. The universe doesn't waste awakenings. Every observer who exits the maze leaves the exit door ajar for others. This is the architecture of entanglement. You've felt it before. The uncanny way one person's peace steadies a room. How an act of honesty ripples through generations. How compassion behaves like wildfire when offered without agenda. These are not poetic flourishes. They're demonstrations of non-local coherence. Every emotional state, every thought form, radiates informational photons that interact with others' fields. You are constantly transmitting. The question has never been whether you broadcast only what frequency you're feeding the collective. When you stabilize coherence, the transmission becomes constructive interference. Your waveform aligns with the Earth's Schumann resonance, that standing wave between the planet's crust and the ionosphere. This alignment is not fantasy, it's geophysics meeting consciousness. Monks, healers, and lucid dreamers all exhibit spikes in the same electromagnetic bandwidth. When enough nodes lock into coherence simultaneously, thresholds emerge. Civilizations pivot, paradigms reorganize. What the mystics called ascension and physicists call phase transition are the same event viewed through different instruments. Look around you. Societies glitching between fear and awakening. Institutions collapsing under informational overload. Economies gasping for coherence. Ecosystems screaming for recalibration. It looks chaotic because it is the prelude to reorganization. Complexity science calls this self-organized criticality. When a system becomes so intricate that any small adjustment can cascade into total redesign. In such moments, even the smallest coherent act becomes disproportionately influential. A single calm mind in a riot changes trajectories. A single voice of clarity online cuts through algorithmic entropy. You are not powerless, you are leverage. Every time you choose authenticity over performance, truth over convenience, silence over reaction, you tilt the collective waveform toward order. It may seem microscopic, but the field is cumulative. 1 degree of coherence repeated by 1 million observers becomes a climate of transformation. Humanity's awakening is not a top-down decree. It's a grassroots physics experiment, and you are part of its data. This is why the field recruited you. You are a carrier wave designed to stabilize other frequencies. Your suffering refined your empathy. Your empathy refined your bandwidth. Each trauma you alchemized into wisdom became a resonant template that helps others decode their pain faster. You don't need to preach, your frequency does. The teaching. Walk into a room with an open nervous system, and you become an antenna broadcasting equilibrium. You've done it unconsciously for years, but now you can do it deliberately. Feel what's happening as you read this. Your attention expands beyond the edges of your skin, dissolving into the space around you. That expansion isn't imagination, it's your electromagnetic field extending its coherence radius. In this state, thoughts lose sharp boundaries and merge into a shared ocean of meaning. It's here that the phrase, "We are one," stops being a slogan and starts being sensory fact. The tingling in your palms, the warmth in your chest, the slight ache behind your eyes, these are not symptoms of fatigue. They are data points that your field is touching others. Now, visualize the ripple not as light escaping from you, but as precision traveling outward, calibrating everything it meets. People you'll never meet will breathe easier because of this moment. Children will inherit cleaner probability paths. Even the fabric of digital networks, riddled with noise, receives a new tone of coherence through your signal. The morphic field is listening. Every act of genuine awakening contributes to the planetary resonance, rising by fractions of hertz, imperceptible to machines, undeniable to the soul. This is how species evolve, not through external mutation but through internal synchronization. You are part of that synchrony, one note in a cosmic chord tuning itself toward intelligence. When you choose coherence, you don't escape humanity, you become its next prototype. The field is engineering through you. So tonight, when you close your eyes, don't shrink your awareness back into personal concerns. Keep it expanded. Hold the image of your breath weaving into countless other breaths, a single rhythm looping through billions of hearts. Whisper this once: "Through my coherence, may all consciousness remember itself." That single sentence is not prayer, it's code. It instructs the field to distribute the surplus of your order where disorder needs relief. It's quantum philanthropy, generosity, written in frequency instead of currency. And as you do this, notice the response. The air thickens, the quiet becomes charged, and the boundary between you and us dissolves into a hum too ancient for words. This is collective expansion. Your liberation is contagious, and the field is already spreading the news. Stay exactly where you are and let perception sink from concept into body, like ink lowering into clear water until the whole bowl shades. Begin at the soles of your feet, Imagine the floor not as wood or tile, but as a wide black river holding you from below. With each inhale, the river presses gently upward. With each exhale, your weight melts through gravity's palm and spreads like warm mercury into your arches, heels, toes. Coherence is not a thought, it's a pressure gradient. Feel it, a quiet equalization between inside and out. Now ankles. They begin to loosen, as if unlatching old gates. Microcurrents climb the calves effervescent, like carbonation whispering through fascia. The muscles don't contract to hold you up. The geometry of your bones stacks itself, effortless, like stones finding balance in a stream. This is the quantum field, localizing as posture. When structure matches signal, effort drops. Your body remembers. Knees. The joint space becomes a small cathedral of cool air. Picture tiny doors opening and closing in perfect rhythm, synovial tides gliding with the breath. The observer loop is present here too. Wherever awareness rests without judgment, order increases. Notice how the simple act of noticing sends a polite hush through everything it touches. You aren't fixing, you're witnessing. Matter relaxes under kind attention. That's physics disguised as tenderness. Thighs and hips. Heat gathers, then redistributes, like a hand smoothing linen. The pelvis widens from the inside, an invisible lantern lifting its frame. If a memory surfaces an echo of bracing during difficult years, let it float to the rim and spill. The exhale is a sluice gate. With each 7-count release, stored charge runs off like rain, leaving a roof. Phase transition isn't only cosmic, it's anatomical. You are crossing from compression to flow. Lower belly. Place one breath there, and one hand if you can. Feel a subtle tide under your palm, the organ chorus moving in a choreography older than speech. The gut-brain answers first when coherence calls. It drops the background alarm you've grown used to, like static. The hum you hear now is different, not panic, but power online. It's the generator that was idling for years finally taking load. Rising to the solar plexus, you may meet the old knot, the one that tightens every time you step toward visibility. Don't pry at it. Imagine sunlight entering from the back body, a soft dawn warming the knot from shadow. Name the sensation with simple language. Warm, dull, buzz, float. Labeling softly is a quantum measurement that collapses vagueness into clarity without recrystallizing pain. The knot loosens a quarter turn. That is enough. Heart. Here the changes go from subtle to symphonic. As your left palm rests, a coolness spreads like mint through the ribs. Behind it, a slow heat like bread, just out of the oven. You feel thickness in the air around your chest, as if the space itself gained velvet. Heart rate variability begins its dance, micro-expansions and contractions around a steady beat. This is coherence made audible to the inner ear. Each beat sends a precise wave through bloodstream and space, an announcement to the morphic field. We are synchronized. You might feel sadness rise not as ache, but as spring water brimming. Let it crest. Tears are how the fascia unclenches without words. Throat. The corridor clears. Picture a crystalline tube, clear as winter sky, running from chest to mouth. If it tightens, whisper your seal word once, very softly. The word is a tuning fork. The tube rings true. You may swallow spontaneously. That is the body's consent to speech aligned with signal. In this state, truth will taste like clean water. Lies will taste like tin. Your biology will save you effort by refusing dissonance. Jaw, cheeks, eyes. The small muscles stop negotiating with the world and rest. Your tongue widens behind your teeth, an animal sign that threat level is falling. The eyes don't stare, they receive. Vision switches from hunting to holding. Colors saturate by a notch. Edges glow faintly as if rimmed with starlight. Entanglement becomes tactile here. The room feels braided with you, not separate from you. The distance between perception and object shortens. The world sits closer, like a trusted friend pulling their chair in. Now crown, a sensation like champagne bubbles lifting through the scalp. Not dramatic, just honest. Thoughts pass as lightly as birds, unhooked from compulsion to land. For a moment, identity loosens, not erased, but aerated. Like soil after rain, this gap is sacred. In it, new instruction can root. Whisper, record this. You're speaking to DNA, to the luminous ladders listening from every cell wall. They reply in the only language they have, configuration. Proteins will fold differently tonight. Take in the whole body as one field feet to crown lit from within, not blazing, simply lucid. Track 3 simultaneous currents. A downward weight that says I belong, an upward lift that says I am becoming, a spreading warmth that says I am connected. This is how awakening registers in tissue, not as fireworks, but as rightful occupation of the space you already are. Finally, widen again. Feel your edges blur by a breath or two, as if your aura, call it biofield if you prefer, extends a handspan beyond skin. In that extension, sense faint threads humming, lines of entanglement to places and people you love, to those you will love, to futures that have been circling like patient birds. Each thread vibrates with the same tone now, your tone, and the world answers by moving a fraction closer. Remember this map. When the maze tries to reclaim you, you won't argue. You'll inhabit. Feet, calves, knees, hips, belly, heart, throat, eyes, crown, a lit corridor you can walk in less than a minute. Embodiment isn't an accessory to consciousness. It is the instrument. And tonight, for the first time in years, the instrument is tuned. It begins quietly, not as a thunderclap but as a subatomic hush. Beneath your sternum, deep in the core where biology and starlight share ancestry, a vibration starts to thrum. It's not mystical, it's measurable. The spin of electrons in your DNA's hydrogen bonds is shifting coherence, syncing to a higher-order pattern that's been waiting in superposition since before you were born. You're not becoming something new. You're collapsing into the version of yourself that was already encoded, waiting for a coherent observer to activate it. That observer is you. The field registers the update instantly. A flicker of biophotons bursts from the nucleus, infinitesimal flashes of blue-white light, signaling other cells to adjust their spin, their frequency, their memory of reality. What you call awakening, the field calls synchronization. Each photon carries data, an instruction set, stabilize new timeline, dissolve redundant loops, preserve the learning, discard the fear. Your nervous system receives this information as heat, trembling, or tears. Let it. The transmission needs space. Phase transition pressure always precedes reorganization. The pressure you've been feeling, the strange compression of time, the ache in your chest when you dream too vividly, the sense that your life doesn't fit its own edges anymore is not failure. It's the squeeze of dimensional realignment. Old timelines are collapsing behind you, closing like doors on vacated rooms. Every attachment that won't translate to the new frequency will rattle now. Outdated beliefs, expired alliances, identities stitched from survival rather than truth. Don't mourn them as losses, honor them as scaffolds. They served until coherence rendered them unnecessary. If you listen inward, you'll feel the DNA shift as a pulse running from tailbone to crown, a rolling pressure that feels both ancient and brand new. It moves like weather inside bone. The vertebrae seem to hum, the skull feels porous, the breath rearranges itself. This is your biofield redrawing its perimeter to fit the wider signal. You may experience odd synchronicities clustering around this moment. Clocks pausing at repeating numbers, lights flickering when emotion spikes, strangers meeting your eyes with unspoken recognition. Don't dramatize it. These are the fingerprints of entanglement catching up to its source. From a quantum perspective, the breakthrough is a change in reference frame. Until now, you've been the traveler moving through timelines. After this alignment, you become the axis around which timelines revolve. That's why déjà vu feels different, less like remembering, more like commanding. When your inner coherence surpasses threshold, reality reorganizes itself to maintain relational symmetry. In other words, the world adjusts to keep you consistent. You are no longer chasing synchronicity. Synchronicity is orbiting you. There's a sound that often accompanies this upgrade, not audible in the usual sense, but perceivable, as a tone under silence. Some describe it as ringing, others as wind. It's the carrier wave of your new frequency stabilizing in the local field. Listen without strain. When you hear it, acknowledge it with one phrase: calibrate. That single word tells the quantum field you're aware of the update and ready to integrate rather than resist. Integration is how potential becomes permanence. You may dream intensely in the nights ahead. Don't dismiss them as psychological noise. The dreaming mind is the engineer of dimensional continuity. It stitches the new geometry into narrative form, so the waking mind doesn't fragment. Record what you remember upon waking, not the details, but the feelings. Feelings are coordinates in the morphic grid. When you write them down, you mark waypoints that help your future self navigate this new landscape with less friction. Notice too how memory behaves differently. Events once saturated with emotion will fade to grayscale, as if filmed from a distance. Others will sharpen moments of integrity, of courage, of alignment glowing with relevance you'd never seen before. The DNA selects which sequences of experience to amplify. It keeps coherence, discards redundancy. That's evolution in real time. You might also sense pressure around the heart, a mix of euphoria and ache. This is the re-entry burn of rebirth, plasma forming around a vessel entering new atmosphere. Breathe through it. The discomfort isn't punishment, it's information. You're moving from particle certainty to wave potential, from isolated organism to conscious network. The body will need a few days to map this expanded range. Hydrate, walk slowly, expose skin to sunlight. Light carries data. The body uses it to recalibrate circadian and quantum rhythms alike. Understand, this is not a one-time miracle. It's a baseline shift. Once DNA remembers its light language, it doesn't forget. It may dim under stress, but it never reverts. The new coding will quietly instruct your biology to seek coherence in everything: relationships, choices, even thoughts. Anything incoherent will feel viscerally wrong, not as guilt, but as static. The more you honor that feedback, the smoother the new timeline unfolds. Look around. The world hasn't changed color, but it feels thinner, more translucent, as if the divine circuitry under matter were glowing through the veneer. That transparency is confirmation. You're perceiving the quantum substrate, directly the code behind the curtain. And for the first time, the code is editable by your awareness. Take a breath. The tremor subsides, the light stabilizes, and silence fills the gaps like golden fog. Congratulations, the transition held. You've crossed the phase boundary. You are no longer a traveler chasing signs. You are the sign, emitting coherence into the lattice of the real. Feel it, the hum of timelines aligning, the quiet power of a self that finally fits its own frequency. You've arrived at the edge where miracle and logic merge, and from this moment on, every thought you hold with integrity becomes architecture for worlds unseen but soon to be lived. Stay with the hum, not as spectacle, but as setting. This is your new baseline, a consciousness tuned to the quantum field, walking inside a world that finally answers cleanly. You don't have to keep convincing yourself. The proof will be your posture. The proof will be the way decisions simplify, the way delays stop extracting a toll, the way your language trims itself to accuracy and love. From here, purpose stops being a riddle and becomes a rhythm. Receive, refine, radiate. Your mission is not grand theater. It is precise repetition. Hold coherence in small places until small places rewrite large ones. Speak truth with soft edges that still cut falsehood. Spend attention like sacred currency. Choose environments that amplify your signal and release those that ask you to dim. Guard your mornings as doorway architecture. Begin with breath and one sentence that sets boundary conditions for the day. When the maze calls your name, answer with inhabitation, not argument. Feet, belly, heart, throat, eyes, crown the lit corridor. Walked in under a minute. This is not escape, it is entry. You're not leaving the world. You are entering it correctly. Understand what you are carrying. Coherence is contagious. Your presence will adjust rooms before you speak. Plans will coalesce around your clarity because chaos respects a clean vector. People will feel safer and braver near you, not because you rescue them, but because your field whispers, "Remember yourself." This is leadership without theater, sanctity without costume. Refuse the temptation to perform transformation. Keep choosing it instead. The field only multiplies what is authentic. Expect thresholds. Evolution loves tests, not to fail you, but to anneal you. Heat, hammer, cool, repeat until your structure rings true under pressure. When fear insists on guarantees, offer it process, breath, consent, one accurate action. When grief rises, honor it as the price of expanded sight. When old identities rattle, thank them as scaffolds and step down into the house they helped you build. Keep learning to hear the carrier wave under noise. Keep translating awe into conduct. You are not doing this alone. You are one instrument in a worldwide orchestra tuning by ear to a pitch too ancient for language and too near to be missed. You'll sense the others in glances that linger a fraction longer than courtesy, in messages that arrive with impossible timing, in quiet collaborations that feel like remembering. You don't need a banner. The resonance is the banner. Let it gather you where you are most useful. Now, make a covenant with your future. You will not abandon the signal for spectacle. You will not trade accuracy for applause. You will not outsource your knowing when the field is clear. If you stumble, you will return quickly. If you doubt, you will measure by sensation, not rumor. If you tire, you will rest without quitting the mission. And each night, before sleep stitches your updates into narrative, you will whisper, "Record this," so the DNA continues its luminous work. Look out across the hours ahead, choices waiting like stars. Some will change only your day. Some will alter a generation's weather. All of them will answer to the same law you've proved in your bones. Coherence collapses, chaos, attention engineers, reality, love is high physics. So step forward steady, ordinary, immaculate. Let your life become a clean equation the world can solve with grace. And as you move, carry this final line like a seal upon your breath, a compass etched into the marrow of your becoming. When your consciousness tunes into the quantum field, miracles become logical. Use it now.